What's up guys, my name is Timbo and welcome to another episode of Destiny Database. In our last episode on the Cabal, I held a poll on my channel allowing you guys to vote for the topic of the next episode. While this vote was a lot closer than the others I've had in the past, it was still a pretty unanimous win with the Vanguard coming out on top. And I gotta admit, that was kinda surprising. Big Daddy Callus getting no love. I know that doing polls might result in some people not getting the video they want, but by doing so I try to please the most amount of people as possible. Even aside from the polls, I still get lots of requests and video ideas from you guys. I wish I can make all of them, but that's just not realistic. Other than me just not having enough time, sometimes the requests I get are good, but with my quicker summary format, certain topics don't have enough information on them to warrant a full YouTube video. I could make videos on those things, but I don't want to spam you guys with content that's only a couple minutes long. And while that might be sad, you don't have to stay sad for long. Because while videos less than 3 minutes don't really fit on my YouTube channel, there is another place for them to have a home. Today's video has been sponsored by Amino. Amino is very similar to YouTube, allowing anyone to post content to the app, but unlike YouTube, videos are created in the form of stories. Amino stories are much shorter than your standard YouTube video, only a minute or two, allowing me to easily create videos on some of those less complex Destiny stories, as well as experiment content on other things. Different types of stories are featured on Amino's Discover page based on your preferences, so you can easily search specific keywords. Like, I don't know, Destiny? A lot of you guys have been asking to see a video on the Scorn, and that video can be watched right now on Amino. To find it, you can click the link in the description or search Amino and download it from the App Store. To find my stories, just search Timbo, follow me, and that's it. There's not really a lot of steps to this. Amino, like YouTube, also has bell notifications, so go ahead and hit that too so you don't miss any future uploads. By doing that, you'll be supporting this channel and me. Thank you guys for listening, and now, let's get on to the Vanguard. Just starting out here on a very basic level, what is the Vanguard? The Vanguard are elite guardians who coordinate the last city's defenses, organize assaults on enemy strongholds and assassinations of their leaders, mentor newly risen guardians, and if you're Commander Zavala, become a living meme whenever the Cabal is involved. Some other Vanguard responsibilities include selling weapons and specific armor to their class, guide guardians through their mission via comms, and even get in the action themselves sometimes when Bungie isn't lazy. I mean, if the need is dire enough. The Vanguard played an important role in organizing the resistance against Oryx during the Taken War. And while that was successful, the Vanguard's record isn't exactly perfect. The invasion on the last city led by Dominus Gaul threw the Vanguard into disarray. While the Vanguard's leadership survived the destruction of the tower, they became displaced over the solar system and questioned how they would overcome the Red Legion. Fortunately, the Guardian that does all the things was able to reunite the 3 Vanguard members to fight in the Red War. After successfully defeating Gaul and the Red Legion, the Vanguard set up a new base near the ruins of the old tower. A year after the Red War ended, tragedy struck the Vanguard. Get your tissues out. While on a mission with the Guardian to contain a massive prison break within the Prison of Elders, Hunter Vanguard Cade 6 was badly beaten. The Scorn Barons later destroyed his ghost, taking away his ability to resurrect. Then the once thought dead Prince Uldren Sov took Cade's weapon, the Ace of Spades, and murdered Cade 6 in cold blood. Though Uldren and the Scorn were eventually defeated by the Guardian, who does all the things still, whoever would assume the place of Cade remains unknown. Currently, the remaining members of the Vanguard, Ikora Rey and Commander Zavala, as well as other officials, are considering who will assume Cade's role as Hunter Vanguard. Unfortunately for them, the hunters that have the skill and leadership to take the position have fled the city in anticipation or fear of being chosen, and rightfully so, as you'll see in a second. Before getting into some of the history of the current Vanguard members, I'm going to really quickly go over all known Vanguards since the beginning of time. Commander Zavala is the most recent Titan Vanguard, but before him was the deceased Saint 14 and the retired Saladin Forge. As for Ikora, the other Warlock Vanguard was Osiris, who was exiled from the tower for reasons I explained in detail in my Vex video. As for the Hunters, that's where it gets interesting. There are a total of 5 Hunters who took up the role as Vanguard, including Cade 6, and all of them ended up dead in one way or another. You can probably see why people weren't super willing to fill the position after Cade bit the dust. Kinda awkward. All of the Vanguard members have a good amount of lore and background, with Cade probably having the most. So much so that he would really warrant his own video separate from this one. I also want to keep this video up to date, and technically Ikora and Zavala are the only 2 Vanguard members. Scouts like Shiro 4 and Sloan exist, but the format of these videos is to cover the most important introductory information. Long story short, I'm just going to talk about Ikora and Zavala. Ikora started her career as a different type of Guardian, with a reputation for being outspoken and impatient compared to her peers. She had a very colorful life on the battlefield, whether fighting in the Crucible or doing solo missions, surviving against all odds. Well duh, she's a warlock. Her experience gave her a wealth of knowledge and newfound respect among her fellow warlocks. Even so, she apparently has a reputation for being scary, including a rumor that she can turn people into frogs. Don't get on Ikora's bad side. Check. Ikora eventually became a student of the warlock Osiris and was arguably his greatest one. However, after her mentor's arrogance and obsession with the Vex grew out of control, she was forced to secretly take over many of his duties as Vanguard. After some time, Osiris's focus on the Vex caused the last city's other leaders to convene a meeting without Osiris present. The speaker asked Ikora to take over officially as Warlock Vanguard, which she accepted. The speaker then announced that he was exiling Osiris for his failure to serve the last city and putting Guardians' lives at risk. With no objections, Osiris was officially exiled and his post as Vanguard commander was taken over by Zavala. Ikora went to confront Osiris to inform him of the decision. She demanded that they talk, but Osiris did not turn around, instead commenting that he was surprised she came alone, asking if she had learned confidence. Salty. Angered by his arrogance, Ikora claimed that she had, but not from him. Osiris claimed he knew why she was there, proclaiming that their confrontation and his banishment had been prophesized. Ikora noted that he had plenty of warning then, causing Osiris's ghost Sagira to lash out at Ikora, proclaiming that she and the rest of the last city stood no chance against the darkness without Osiris. Ikora denied this and stated that winning under his terms was no victory. She then bid her former mentor farewell and turned to leave, but was then stopped by Sagira again, who demanded to know if Ikora was really just going to let the Vanguard exile Osiris after all he had done for her. They then got into a little scuffle with Sagira, trying to throw shade at the Crucible, but Ikora chose to end the conversation and walk away. Ikora met with Osiris one last time before he left, and it went a little bit better as she wished him well in his quest, even though thinking that he had gone totally bonkers. But that's pretty much the story of Ikora up to when we first meet her in Destiny 1. As for Zavala, he has a more... well, he's a Titan, so you probably know where this is going. Zavala oversees all Guardian military operations, with his only goal being to safeguard humanity within the last city. However, recent conflicts such as the Taken and Red Wars has made Zavala become increasingly reluctant to commit Guardians to conflicts outside of the city. Zavala's story starts when he was first revived by his ghost inside a crashed spaceship with no memory of his past. This can be seen in one of the very first Destiny 2 trailers. Zavala was soon in a battle against a Vandal, which he lost. That's going to be a common theme in the story. It took Zavala a little while before he got his KD up. Zavala died twice by the hands of Fallen, but was resurrected by his ghost every time, which was something he wasn't familiar with before. He eventually made his way to the Traveler. Beneath it was a small encampment of refugees, including guardians such as a Titan named Big Daddy Shax, and a warlock known as the Speaker. Zavala aided refugees as they arrived, and soon the camp grew into a town and eventually became the last city. When the city was assaulted by the Fallen, Zavala fought alongside Shax and his fellow guardians to protect the citizens. Following the battle, he helped construct walls around the last city with the aid of other guardians, including Shax, Ikora Rey, and Sloan. Eventually, Zavala became a student of Lord Saladin Forge and a competitor in the Crucible. And if you were wondering, yes, it was probably still unbalanced back then too. Zavala was a member of the meetings where the Vanguard talked about Osiris, but since that was in Ikora's story, I'm gonna skip over it. Zavala learned that the hunter Anastasia Bray was investigating her past life, which Guardians were discouraged from doing. So Zavala confronted her in the tower, being a good old stickler to the rules. He told her that in addition to the inappropriateness of keeping her previous life's name, he believed her research was causing her to neglect her duties to the last city. Anna argued that her past was useful to the last city and maybe why the Traveler brought her back. But Zavala countered that, saying she was brought back to be a guardian and fight for the future. Their argument was interrupted by the hunter Andal Brask, who informed them that the Fallen were assaulting Twilight Gap. Oh yeah, all this Osiris stuff is going on at the same time the Fallen were invading. Zavala led the Battle of Twilight Gap against the Fallen. During the battle, Anna continued to try to convince Zavala that her research was worthwhile, but was attacked by a Fallen captain. Maybe she should have been paying more attention. Zavala ordered her to fall back and attempted to kill the captain with his Thunderlord, but Anna was knocked off a cliff and believed dead by Zavala and the rest of the last city. which now we know isn't true. In the aftermath of these battles, the Fallen remained to assault the Guardians despite losing. This caused Zavala to fight off some foes, some of which being the Silent Fang. As Vanguard commander, multiple factions approached Zavala to try and gain his support, such as New Monarchy and Dead Orbit. Zavala was offered to be made king of the city if he had joined a faction, but he refused, likely not wanting to reignite the faction wars. After the Vanguard learned the Hive were not a myth and remained on both the Earth and the Moon, Zavala commanded the last city's forces during the Battle of Burning Lake. Despite barely winning a victory there, the Consensus began planning an invasion of the Moon to drive the Hive away for good. Shaxx interrupted the Consensus and declared their intentions were folly, stating that the Hive had weapons like nothing they had ever seen that required further study, such as their light-draining swords. Zavala and the Consensus failed to heed Shaxx's warnings, which resulted in the Great Disaster, as thousands of Guardians perished attempting to retake the Moon for humanity. During a meeting of the Consensus, it was agreed that Lysander, who had a sparrow named after him in Destiny 1, would be exiled following an unsuccessful bid to overthrow the Speaker. Zavala supported the idea of future War Cult taking the place of Lysander and the Concordant on the Consensus. I get that this is mainly just a bunch of seemingly unrelated short stories, but Zavala and the Vanguard's past is broken up over a long period of time. When Osiris tried to broker a contract between the city and a mercenary group of Titans called the Sunbreakers, Zavala found the terms of the deal unacceptable and rejected it. This caused the Sunbreakers to hate the Vanguard and Zavala. In return, Zavala erased nearly every mention of the Sunbreakers from the city's records. These events are what bring us up to date meaning the events of Destiny 1 when Zavala encounters a newly risen Guardian in the Cosmodrome. So sadly, this is where the video will end for today. Try not to cry. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a like is super appreciated. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.